Welcome to Mav Sports Take. It is episode 43, quickly coming up on 50 episodes here together with my good friend David Turner. We're your weekly podcast for sports, business, and a whole lot more. Here we tackle the business of all the news that you hear about and some that you do not. Tonight, David and I will be welcoming our guest, Dylan Gonzalez, former UNLV basketball player, pop star, Instagram influencer, and twin. We are super excited to have her on tonight to tell her story of becoming a collegiate basketball player, her playing career, and post-playing pursuit. In our second take, we will take the time to talk about why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, will not have the services of a Navy rookie cornerback named Cameron Kinley, who is a good friend of the show, as well as throwing in a little secret sauce if time permits. David Turner, I know we have a star-studded show, our probably most popular guest as far as social media goes, and obviously a lot of experience that she's had both in the sports arena and outside of the sports arena. But my question is to start, of course, like every show. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great tonight. You know what? Today's been a really productive day, so it's been good, and I'm just excited to have Dylan on and share her story and share our connection and everything with our viewers. I think it's going to be a really unique understanding of the difference in recruiting between men's sports and women's sports, the difference in understanding that a little bit. We'll dive into that to start with her conversation, but then also the impact that NC2A has on athletes right now and how, when they go to school, they're not just an average student. They can't build their post-playing career while they're at school. There's a lot of handcuffs, a lot of yoke around their neck. So, I think it'll be interesting to hear her story and how she's overcome it and moved on. And then we'll talk a little bit about the WNBA, where she had a brief, tryout and opportunity. And then what she's up to now, which is a lot of big things. So I'm really excited to get her on and talk to her about everything that she's got going.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversations. I feel like we talk a lot about athletes in their playing career, in their playing arena, but we don't talk about the success stories outside of it. So we're going to focus a little more on that. And of course, Cameron Kinley, who is a good friend of the show, has been with us twice, David, and a crazy story that came out yesterday that I sent you late last night, or it might have been in the morning when I was feeding the baby or something. It came across, someone actually sent it to me and I was like, that is crazy. I didn't even see anything about it. So a lot to get to tonight. And of course, scouting secret sauce with David Turner, of course, 18-year scouting vet across the XFL, I said CFL, NFL, and 3 straight Arena League championships with the Arizona Rattlers, both in a scouting and front office realms. So we're going to give that a little bit to you before we get into what we are here to do tonight here at MaverickSportsConsulting.com. We would like to say to you, if you're a college looking to improve your recruiting department to maximize the transfer portal, high school recruiting, and junior college transfers to turn your program around quickly, David has 19 years of personnel experience, 10 years NFL experience managing college scouting departments as well as pro personnel departments. Mavericks is primed and ready to work with your existing staff and coaches to build you a recruiting department that will mirror your efforts in the coaching department. Let David and Maverick Sports Consulting assist you building a championship team in 2021. Please visit MaverickSportsConsulting.com today. So, David, before we get Dylan on, I know we're really excited about this. I feel like we should go into a couple of the other stories that we wanted to touch on today. I know we kind of went to lead off with that, but I think that this is a really actually, no, we're gonna save it. We're going to save Mr. Cameron Kinley because that's a very in-depth story. So let's go to the secret sauce here. Of course, you are, and I should start by saying we thank everybody that is out there, both in the Twitterverse, in the YouTubeverse, Facebook, wherever you're listening to us. We appreciate you for tuning in, obviously. Thank you. And if you want to throw in a question at any point today, we are live here and throw it in. It could be a scouting perspective, sports perspective, business perspective, whatever. We are here to answer for you. So, David, I want to hone in on your scouting experience for a second, okay? So I put down here, we're gonna do some secret sauce, baby. Some secret sauce of
The
scouting.
secret sauce. Okay. All right.
We're gonna
I
we're
got
gonna
you.
go to the defensive line. We're gonna talk some interior defensive linemen. I'm gonna group it up very broad here, right? Because I know that we could be dealing with 0, 1, 3 tech, 4 eye, 2 eye, 4, 5. We can move all the way out there depending on if we're in an even or an odd man front. But to keep it as broad as possible, when I'm talking interior defensive linemen, what are some key things that you're looking for on film that for you are paramount for a player being successful or not being able to make it at the next level?
You limit me so much because, I got to talk individually about those. I mean, when you're talking
Do you
about
want
a
to do that?
zero,
Do you want to do
well,
it? Let's
I'm
go
just saying, like
technique.
a zero technique, you need to pad level and anchor. They got to really keep the middle interior offensive lineman off the linebackers in a 34. If you're talking about a 3 technique, it's quickness. How do they rush the edges of the different guards so they can, to beat them, defeat them, and get upfield and penetrate and change the line of scrimmage. If you're talking about, more of a 4 eye type guy, he's got to be strong. He's got to, really change the line of scrimmage with his penetration power. So he can, use his upper body to shock, extend, and get the blockers off his body, but use his lower body power and pad level to drive him into the backfield, disrupting running game, run lanes, and also the quarterback's pocket, messing up the feet. Those are things that I always look at. What's consistent for me is strength inside, handling double teams, stacking the line of scrimmage, creating a traffic jam, as one of my mentors used to call it, inside there. If they're getting the double team, can they drop to the knee and really stack it and stay in there and dominate with their strength? Or if it's a single block, are they able to shock and shed, disengage from the block, and then penetrate and make a play in the backfield? Tackles for loss is a stat that I always look for when I'm watching defensive linemen, because I want to see how much, not only is a tackle for loss important, but how many rush lanes and run lanes have they influenced with their penetration power or quickness to make a running back make a decision in the backfield or move a quarterback off his spot. A lot of times the sack comes from the outside rusher, but the quarterback was moved off his spot from the interior pressure. So if you're an interior guy, even though you don't get the chalk mark that you got the sack, you really influence the sack. And us scouts, we watch that and we see how many sacks were influenced by your penetration, quickness, or power from the inside, changing the line of scrimmage interiorly. So, that's something that I would definitely look for when I'm scouting somebody. And how you get that is with your pad level, obviously your hand use, your quickness, and your upper body shock and shed, or even just, press and extend. If you allow a blocker to get onto your body, you got to be able to press and extend them off your body, and then disengage from them, work off contact. So those are all things that from each different position. You'll find different traits that stand out more.
I asked a very broad question, so I expected a very in-depth answer on multiple alignments. And I respected David Turner. Let's go from this area because you hit. I mean, you talked about the ability to press and extend, get off of blocks, have good hands, be able to bend the outside. Not as much an outside track rusher, obviously, but if we're talking about a 3 tech, be able to bend that outside shoulder and get into that rush lane. You talked about a lot of key things. I know I really want to hone in on your experiences. So you had the ability with your time with the Panthers and the Raiders and the Giants and all the 49ers, Dolphins around the league to be around some of the absolute best defensive linemen that we have seen over the last generation. So let's go one by one on these techniques a little bit. Best 3 technique that you have personally been around during your career. I know it's an easy one.
Yeah, it's Warren Sapp. I mean,
Never heard of him. Never heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of that guy, right? But Warren was the best 3 technique. I mean, he was ridiculous. His quickness, his energy, his lower body power and girth to get upfield. It was just, he was amazing to watch, even in practice. Like, he wasn't the best practice player. I'm not going to sit here and tell people things they don't know, but he took pride in his practicing. And, especially if he made a mistake in a game, like the next week in practice, he would go back and work whatever technique he needed to jump back on, like get back right. So, I mean, he was a guy that took a lot of pride on Sundays that he was going to be a difference maker. and it showed in he lifted a lot of weight and did a lot of things right. I mean, but his quickness, his hand fighting and ability to disengage from blockers and penetrate. I mean, he moved. Here's a skill that not everybody has. Everybody will think they have, but they don't. He moved his hands and feet together in unison in ways in which is very rare, because sometimes you step, but your body gets out of alignment. Your natural body mechanics get out of alignment just a little bit. So now you can't slap and rip because you're a little bit far outside. That never bothered him. If he took if it was a 6-inch step and he took an 8, it didn't bother him. He could he can compensate with it with his natural bend and ability through his hips, and his hands and feet would move together. It was just awesome. It was awesome to watch him work.
Well, I think that's a common thing, even when we're talking about multiple positions. I mean, I write this in quarterback reports all the time. I see so many guys where their upper and lower body are fighting against each other, right? Like they're not aligned. They're not in unison. Like from linebackers coming to balance and striking, filling a gap, from a defensive lineman engaging, getting off a block, trying to bend the outside track, from a cornerback getting in and out of breaks, from a wide receiver keeping his chest over his toes and getting clean out of breaks with little wasted movement, from running backs being able to cut on a dime and hit a cutback lane on inside zone. Whatever it is, it's so important and vital. And I love that kind of explanation, David, because I feel like some guys, they just get easily disconnected and their body works against one another. So
a lot of times you'll see young kids work their hand technique, just standing in place and working their hand technique, and they're not working it with their foot movement too. And so then when they come off the ball, their feet will move, they'll penetrate, but then they almost get stuck in sand when they're trying to use their hands.
You see it all the time when they're trying to defeat press coverage, right? Like they're hand fighting, but then their lower body stops. It's like you just put yourself in place. Like you can't gain any momentum. Like you need to attack vertically, then use the hands so that you're working both avenues there. So I agree completely. And I know that we have a lot more to dig into the defensive line, but we don't want to keep our guests waiting. So we are going to bring on Miss Dylan Gonzalez now, former UNLV women's basketball player, turned pop star, turned Instagram influencer, and twin, just throw it in there. Dylan, appreciate you coming on tonight. How are you?
I'm amazing, you guys. I was seriously loving the conversation even before entering. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's good to see you. It's a long time no see, huh?
For real. And it was too long.
Dylan and I had a pre-show conversation, so I was just messing with her there a little bit.
Well, Dylan, I'm fascinated to get, not only the playing experience that you had, but also, I mean, I was saying in our intro, we talk so much about the players on the field, just in their playing realm, and we don't talk about life after that, right? Because there's a lot of people that do amazing things, and you're one of them, obviously. But I want to start you out in the sports arena. We have a lot of young athletes, of course, that, listen in and talk and love to hear how people got to where they were. And obviously you as a Division I women's basketball player, if you could just give us a little insight into when you were getting recruited coming out of high school, what were some of the important aspects to you that you were looking for when you were trying to make that college decision?
Man, so first and foremost, I was the kid that had to know every detail about my situation to feel comfortable. So my big thing coming into a school was looking at the competitive level of the conference play. I wanted to play against who I believed were the highest level of competitors. And when I got to look at every single school, aside from the competitiveness on the court, I would say the number one thing was academics for me. And it was making sure that I was not just competing in the four lines, but also in the classroom as well. Because in my household, just education was something that was instilled very deeply as a value. And so I was, just competitive overall. So I was even if you're going to get an A, I'm getting an A plus. And it's if you got an A plus, I had to get an A plus plus. And that's just how it was going down all the time. So definitely competitiveness, academics, and then coaches and the orientation and the chemistry that I had with my coaches. Because being a family-oriented person, I needed to be in an environment, and I knew this about myself, I needed to be in an environment that reflected that that reflected having family-oriented values. And a lot of schools don't have that. They'll kind of roll out the red carpet. They might give you that smoke and mirrors, make you think so, but it's a lot more business protocol and propaganda than it is family orientation.
Mhm.
Now, did that come from Pocatello, Idaho?
That came from heaven. But yeah, kind of.
Yes.
It was literally the middle of nowhere, you know what I mean? So I had to I had time to sit and figure out what I didn't like and what I did like, and then just time to grind, man. That was it.
What did you notice coming out of high school that maybe was indifferent or different, I should say, between you getting recruited and maybe some of the males in your school getting recruited? What were, how different was just we talk a lot about, honestly, on our show, like the difference in sports and stuff, but this is a subject we've never hit before, and we've never had an athlete like you on. So I really want our listeners to hear this, how the difference in recruiting from a female athlete goes versus a male athlete coming out of high school.
Oh, two completely different sides of the same coin. That's what it is. On one side of the coin, you have guys with pretty straightforward agendas in the male game, right? The only people who kind of know about the agenda are the ones that are involved. But when it comes down to it, it's a straightforward conversation of what we're going to provide for you and what you're going to provide for us, right? And that's how people, get lured into different places. And to be honest with you, I'm not even somebody who's like judging how business gets handled, because a lot of the times, a lot of these coaches are genuinely trying to look out for the student before, the athlete part of it. And they want them to, bring them in with the glitz and glamour. But there are those few rare coaches that are genuinely trying to help provide longevity for people, right? Then on the women's side, on the other side of it, you get more smoke and mirrors, a lot more smoke and mirrors, because of the fact that they have to present it very similarly to how the guys do, but there is no money being put into it the same, like for the men. So therefore, they're not going to have that same budget that the guys have to be able to like lure women in with that kind of material or potential or whatever it is, trying to get you to the next level. Because then there's that. The men have the next level and a very established, very prolific, very lucrative professional avenue. Women do not have that. We are still like 50 plus years behind. That's very generous still. In the times, but comparatively between the opportunity for men professionally and the opportunity for women professionally. So a lot of times what will happen with the young women is that you get caught up in the hype. The men do too. But again, the difference is there's a lot less straightforwardness, a lot less opportunity, and there is a lot less protection for the women. Women are a lot more expendable because of the fact that they are not going to bring you $1 million ticket, right? Like, so we think we have this understanding and stigma around it. So they're not going to be protected from the system because they're not these money bags that are also in the best interest of the people running the system, right? So therefore, when it comes to women, you're actually putting yourself in a position to be resourced, but not necessarily get any return on your investment. And that's the problem. It's like when you're getting recruited, everything seems like so great. And unless you're going into it with a very clear plan and a clear agenda, and you study the school and you look at the people and the players they've developed and what they've done after their career, that's very important. I believe for any player to do, male or female, is to study the products of the school that you want to come out of. Because if you don't, then you're going to go into it with a lot, with a lack of knowledge necessary to succeed at the next level and then at the next level, and the next level, and so on and so forth. So that's where it gets tricky with the understanding of how women get recruited versus how guys get recruited, because there's so many different factors, but it's both essentially within the same avenue of these people coming in wanting to bring you to the school for what they claim is, you know, your betterment and your development, when really it's all agenda based, and they're really your constituents, not your confidants.
Dylan,
Constituents. not your
I kind of have a follow-up question on that. Do you feel like, looking back on it now, because I know that obviously you have probably learned a lot through your experience talking about, the recruiting process and trying to pick schools. When you kind of look back on it in retrospect, if you could just tell yourself something, maybe going through the process, is there something that in particular that you would do differently?
Ooh, man. Yeah, I would have. I would have honestly humbled myself.
Hmm.
I would have humbled myself. Because coming into it, I was the player that's, you know, number one, number two, back and forth with my sister in the state. And, you know, McDonald's, top 100, top this, you know, I'm getting recruited by every single school. I'm getting offered everywhere. I literally had the pick of the litter. Everyone's coming knocking at my door. And I had all the odds against me being in a small town. And I didn't even have a team in my area. I had to travel 2 hours to Salt Lake City to play competitive. Wow. And to go play AAU and to get seen. Like, that's how seriously I took it. I'd get up at 6 a.m., drive 2 hours, go. I was on multiple AAU teams. That's why a lot of coaches couldn't even really keep up with me. I probably actually would have had a higher rating and a higher ranking if people actually knew where the hell to follow me, because I was having to constantly change teams just because of different factors, disassembling them or whatever. You know, it was very hard. So considering that I had all these factors against me, and I knew that, and I'm literally getting, again, this red carpet rolled out for me. You know, I can basically break any rule that, you know, isn't too, you know, controversial, and do, you know, really whatever I wanted. And when it came to my little town, man, I could get away with murder. Seriously, man. Like, I could talk to people however I wanted. I would have an attitude, just because, you know, I would get disrespected a lot. So it kind of built this very mean energy, like ready to pounce, ready to fight, and never in a physical altercation. I was competitive. So I would just be like, all right, well, how are we going to decide this? What kind of game do you want to play? I'll come to your little world because I'm going to win in it anyways. Like, that's kind of the mean bully mentality that I had, and just winning. And oh man, when I even get to reflect now on that time, I'm like, yeah, damn, like, it's a movie, right? But again, I needed to humble myself, at least mentally. Like, okay, it's one thing to like be expressing this version of myself and what I, you know, found to be progressive and healthy, but, you know, people disagreed. And then I would just say, okay, go talk to your therapist about it. But, you know, I couldn't say that out loud all the time, because like, that's just me. I don't always take life too seriously in that way. And I had to start learning my sensitive audiences. But essentially, I wasn't in the mental space of understanding, like, there were levels to the shit. Like, you know, like, there were levels to it. So when I was coming in, I felt like everything I had done to earn me this seat at the table, I felt entitled to certain things coming into the school. Like, I was like, I'm going to be the star. Hello. I'm going to start. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And when things don't go your way, you start resenting the process, resenting the system. You're now underdeveloped. You're mentally checked out. And anybody who wants to succeed at the next level and really make a name for yourself, the mental is so much more crucial than the physical part of the game. It is mind over matter all day, every day, in the 4 lines, out of the 4 lines, sleep, up, whatever. Mind over matter. The will has got to be more powerful than the skill. That's what Muhammad Ali said. And it's, and when you don't have when you are not mentally prepared for the reality of what you're walking into, then it can completely excuse my French, but fuck up your your trajectory of your career and your development from that point forward. And then the next thing you know, all you was potential.
No, and two parts I'm taking from this, and I'm going to ask you two parts, but if you need to remind you the second one, let me remind you, okay? First one, you use the word protection. You use the word protection about females aren't as protected as the males are during the process. I would love to hear what that means and defined. And then second, how important was it? You mentioned your sister being the first or second, depending on the week, best player in the household and the state. But it was like, how important was it for you guys to either attend or not attend the same school during the recruiting process? Because you guys are twins, and I'm sure there's natural competitiveness there. So was it important for you guys to attend the same school or not attend the same school during the recruiting process?
So for the first one, for protection, like women are more expendable in this game because you can get away with treating them any kind of way, and they're ignorant to how this game works. Unfortunately, like when you are, especially when you're like brand new to this, or you're a parent whose kid just so happens to be like really freaking talented, but you don't know shit about sports, or you have kids, and this is honestly what makes up a majority of it, who come from low-income households, who come from rougher backgrounds, who go to sports as a way to, escape their environment and to keep them out of trouble. And they end up in this system, like very similarly to like prison. And you kind of just keep following this ladder of what people have set out before you, and you just kind of follow it. And unfortunately, when it comes to women, because of the fact that money is the number one thing that just humanity has come to value the most, very unfortunately, if you do not bring in money, or you do not have potential to do it in a way that is not just going to fill your pockets and your future children's, and so on and so forth, but everybody involved that's providing you this opportunity in a way that is going to blow somebody's mind as a part of this bigger picture and bigger scheme that the people have for putting this whole business part of it together. If you do not come in at a high value, you are expendable. And so what will happen is a lot of these girls who come from, like, again, backgrounds where maybe their parents didn't even get to have past a high school education. And then this is important. This is why in my 501c3, I'm like, no, education's important. We got to stop telling kids, oh, you don't have to go to college and this and that. You might not have had to do that. But don't set up that blueprint for the rest of generations that need the development, who now are relying on instant gratification and popcorn culture to provide them this a lifestyle of longevity and wealth, when wealth and riches are not the same thing. So now we have people who are not educated financially, who are not educated in how the schooling systems work, who are not educated in the sports systems work, and who also fear authority because they have been taught to fear authority. And fear is control. And if you can control the people in the puzzles that you're trying to create, then you can move forward with your agenda. And that's essentially what all of these people want to do. That's why they make you sign these contracts that are, as a kid, that are, 100 pages long with this little itty bitty fine print that nobody's going to sit there and read, right? So you're not understanding all your rights. You are literally giving up human rights when you sign an NCAA contract. We are living in a primitive time still. I mean, even just with economics in general. And this is no different. And in fact, it's one of the things that's kind of worse because they don't have some kind of governing body of authority to hold them accountable to any of their violations or their bullshit. So they can get away with murder. And a lot of the young men experience this too. But because of the fact that young men have much more opportunity in the professional world outside of college, people gravitate towards that. And they are willing to break laws, not just rules, laws, willing to break laws to protect it, to protect that. With women, you don't have that. So that's what that one is. When it comes to how important it was for my sister and I to stay together, it was like crucial. And everybody would always be like, oh man, like, but maybe you should consider going other places. And we kind of did, because she got an offer to Notre Dame. I got an offer to UW. We both were in love. Like our dream school was to go to Stanford. But then I just started like, you know, not wanting to have to do the work that I was going to have to do to not only get into Stanford, but then, you know, be the best there. So I was like, Big 12, hey. So that's kind of, you know, how that ended up. But ultimately, we did really try to give ourselves the opportunity to even just foresee what that could look like for ourselves in our development. And for the both of us, we just felt like, no, like we're not going to enjoy it. And if we do go play professional, the chances are even less likely that we'll get to play together. So these could be like our freaking glory years. This could be all we have left playing together and getting to be on the same team and to support each other through that. And really, with the amount of jealousy that my sister and I received just because we're beautiful, and I can't help that. Okay, kinda. But I choose like to wake up like this, you know, and I care about my tanning and things that are superficial but make me happy.
Yeah, totally.
So yes, self-accountability. It's rare these days too. But essentially, when it came to that, we've always just been who the hell we are, and everybody else had a problem with it because of the fact that we did not fit the expectation that they had for us, and then that they had for athletes, right? And then that they had for women, and then Black women, and so on and so forth. So many layers to the onion. So we wanted to be able to protect each other and to stick up for each other. We were really each other's only friends. Like, we did not have the kind of college experience that like most people probably think. We were really to ourselves. We were very closed off. We're still friends to this day with the people that, you know, we were closest with in college, and still, you know, I was just with Brooke this morning doing the UNLV camp, you know, that I wasn't supposed to be at. I was like, we're going to surprise everybody, and I'm just going to like show up, be everyone's hype man. So, you know, like just things like that, we wanted to be able to be a part of. And again, that family really meant something like to us, and we are each other's family. So obviously, when it came to the process of recruitment, we started to kind of let that be more known that we were coming like as a package. And thankfully, because of the fact that not only we were both so talented, but we were both very versatile players, and we're tall and we're big and we're strong, you know, and in the women's game, you don't see a lot of guards in this frame or at this heavyweight division. So
you are not, I'm sorry, but you are far from heavyweight division.
hey,
you are far from heavyweight division.
I was pushing 200. I was almost 200 in college. And it's crazy to think, when I even think back at that time, I'm like, damn, I can't believe I was moving like 200 pounds, but I carry my weight very well. So for the women,
I am not, I'm going to have to see some old school tape on that one. I got to see some old school tape on that one.
It was between 180 and 200 is where I like averaged, or yeah, like 177 to 200 is about
and
where
how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot on my roster. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I was 5'6" on my roster, but you know what I'm saying?
I was 6'2", but a very generous 5'11" and a half to a 6'2".
See, yeah. No, I believe I'm legitimately like in between 5'10" and 5'11", like, you know, not exactly on the mark, but in between there. But yeah, like I play like I'm about, like I got 5-inch heels on. So therefore I play like I'm at least 6'5". So I feel like 6 feet is a generous average.
Average. I like it.
Yeah.
I love it too. And Dylan, I know we want to definitely get into the post-playing career, but I kind of want to ask our last basketball question of you. I want to ask you, whether it is at Kansas or UNLV or back in high school, whenever, is there a moment for you that sticks out as one that you will forever cherish?
Oh man. I think, okay, dang, this is tough. So there's two. Mm-hmm. One was definitely making history at UNLV and being the first like team in, I believe, ever, but to go to the postseason. And then, and like just that, like that moment in time, just like it didn't even seem as big as it was at the time, because we still hadn't achieved, you know, all the things that we had set out to achieve for ourselves. But when I really look at that, and when I really just look at the culture that we had created as a team, even with all of our own little personal dramas and controversies and bullshit, but the way that we were able to like pull together and do that, like kind of again with the odds kind of stacked against us, is something that I'll cherish forever, for sure. And then I would say another moment, and this one was during the NBA All-Star. 2000, it was in the early 2000s. I was actually a professional dancer for this squad called the Lil Bustas, and I was a professional halftime dancer for the Denver Nuggets. And I would get out there and do hip hop and break dance and all this stuff. And during All Star, Sierra was performing for the celebrity game at halftime. And Sierra was the reason I started dancing. So I was like, oh my God. So I got to have a moment with Sierra, and actually Destiny's Child like came back together for a little moment as well. And I got to literally dance with my idols, like my top five, like all from basketball and entertainment, just kind of intertwining and intermingling. And I will never, ever, 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 ever forget that. Oh, wait. And then there's one more. So final three. Sorry. I would say all of the moments like playing in the backyard and like going at it like with my brothers and like my high school sweetheart at the time, and like just like staying up like ridiculous hours just playing and just falling in love with the game in that way. You know what I mean? And then again, that love and that manifestation of all of that now leading us here, you know?
No, that's awesome. Those are a great three. You know, I honestly, I'll be honest, because when I came up and I first got my job at the Dolphins, I was like, I didn't know like kind of my access, what it would be to players and everything. And then after 18, 19 years in now, like I can pick up the phone and call guys like your dad and players that I've known forever. And to those of you who don't know, Dylan's biological father is Albert Lewis, a former, Kansas City Chief and Oakland Raider corner. So, and him and I have a relationship, which we didn't realize until Dylan and I got on a call about 2 weeks ago. And she shared that information because I did not know that was her dad. And I was like, oh my God, I know your dad. Like him and I used to like drink beers, like seriously hang out. So
I talked to him about it.
It's true, yeah. And it's like I knew he was down at the host farm down in Louisiana, hanging out and doing his thing. Like that's, it's where he was.
Like you were with that's so great. Like you were there with him in the land before time.
Land before time.
That's how old I am. I was there when he was still playing.
Dinosaurs roaming around, and yeah.
For the land before my time.
Exactly. So my goodness. But that being said, you hit on this a little bit, and I've heard this from you before, so I'd like you to dive into it a little bit more. While you were at school, you were also at UNLV, you were also trying to become work on your post-playing career, whether that was going to be a pop star or whatever, you acting. I know you had like a script go to like a studio to do your story and stuff. What is it that talk to the athletes? I just want you to talk to the athletes, the kids, because it's coming in soon. They're going to be able to make money off their likeness and stuff, but you didn't get to do that. You didn't get the opportunity to do that. Tell them, give them a history lesson right now of where it's come from and what they should, and give a little advice of what they should do, because I think a lot of them are going to mismanage this opportunity when it does come their way.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because I actually do like little mentorship programs and stuff. I literally have my notes right here in front of me. Oh yeah, I got some things for you, children. So first of all, the thing is like it's not what kids think it was. It wasn't all glamorous and all that stuff. Like a lot of the times when you were just trying to have fun or just post up things or whatever, like you were constantly being monitored. So your brand, your likeness, your image, whatever it is that you do or post, you have to understand that if you want to be at that next caliber and at that next level of exclusivity and competitiveness and opportunity, then they're going to have a say so in how you present yourself to the world. And if you're not willing to work with them on that, or you're not already, coming in with a brand that's established for yourself, then you are literally going to put yourself in a basically not first place. I was going to say second or third, but second's the first to last. And what comes after that? Exactly. No one remembers third. So therefore, it's not first place. That's the position you're going to put yourself in, not being willing to work with the school, which is, again, brings us back to why it's so important to know where you're going, to have a real relationship with your coach, and to know also your compliance officer, have a good relationship with your compliance officer, because that's the person who monitors you. Literally, it's like your own little personal warden. They're the ones who make sure you don't break the rules, who enforce them, who have to, help you configure your letters to the NCAA and tell them you're sorry for trying to pursue your dreams. Thank you, Eric Tolliver, compliance officer at UNLV.
I don't know if we've ever had a compliance officer shouted out on the program. That's a first right there.
He was the best. And to be honest with you, I think they did my man's dirty because of the fact that he was so real and he was really trying to help the student athlete, because he ended up getting let go, but it was a very mysterious unfolding, if you know what I mean. So, well, of course I can't find the page I'm looking for, whatever. So I would say one of the things that kids need to be really mindful of, to the history of it, is that this is like one of those ongoing battles. This isn't something that is super clear and refined on. There's so many loopholes. There's so many general and broad terms. So what I would say is, my suggestion is to get your top 5, people, not just athletes. And that's where we have to stop with the tunnel vision and tunneling people and convincing them that they have to be one thing, right? And that's where I have so much respect for LeBron and Uninterrupted for their whole movement with more than an athlete. Mm-hmm. And you should get your top 5 people that you aspire to be like. And there should be multiple reasons for each of these individuals as to why they're even in your top 5. You should look up to people who, share the same, maybe spiritual beliefs and values. Maybe they're public speakers. Maybe they're bishops. Maybe they're, gurus or Buddhists or something. Like, people who share a similar value system to you in that way. People who are, if you want to have financial freedom, financially successful. And then whatever other passions and avenues that you're interested in, find people, if you don't have them already, find people that you're drawn to, that you like when you study them, and really become a student. If you want to be a boss, like the Dill, venture capitalist and walking Fortune 500 company. Thank you. Yes. Anyway,
there you go. Nice little plug. I like it.
If you want to be a boss, the first rule is not, what most people think it is these days. The first, thanks to, urban music, the first rule is to be a student first. Always be a student first. Genuinely listen, genuinely take notes, and then genuinely apply the lesson. Hold yourselves accountable to your betterment. Nobody is going to do the work for you. Everybody around you is a resource to you. Your coach, your compliance officer, your trainer, your nutritionist. They are going to give you all of the information that they are qualified and knowledgeable in to give you. And then it is up to you to take all of that. And it's a lot. There's a lot of information. And when you're a kid, you just kind of get stuck in your ways and you hear it all. Sometimes you write it down. Sometimes if you try it for a week, but ultimately none of it ever sticks because there's not an authority that goes home with you to hold you accountable, because you're now kind of living that middle gray area young adult life where you're starting to experience independence for the first time. So hold yourselves accountable to finding your top 5. To this way, you can also start to get to know yourself and what you want. A lot of athletes, and especially women, don't. And the NCAA says this all the time in their little, we protect the student athlete. 99.99, just kidding, but somewhere up there, percent of athletes go pro in something other than sports. Like, it's like their freaking slogan, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a real thing, but kids don't take that seriously because unfortunately they acquire these very unrealistic expectations and then just standards for themselves that have them believing that they're the one in a million. And it's like, kid, listen, automatically coming into it like that with that attitude just puts you in the rest group with that category, because you should be one of one, not one of a million. So therefore, we need to readjust our mindsets and our mind frames, and we need to get back to the value of educating yourselves and utilizing these resources and not taking them for granted. Don't be so worried about money and the things that you see on Instagram. Like, social popularity online is at like an all-time high. And obviously the effects of COVID and everybody not really having anywhere else to escape to but that world has had a huge impact and influence on the results of that. But now that things are kind of starting to shift gears and there's a shift in the trajectory of the universe and the fates, at least that's what I hear. Now it's time for kids to start making that adjustment. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because growing is done outside of the comfort zone. So you have to really challenge yourself. Again, find those idols, find people you look up to, follow them, study them, like seek that kind of guidance. When I went into all these rooms and I had all these opportunities to be in front of millionaires and billionaires, and I'm pitching my movie to Joel Silver when back in college, I was just reading my little anime series that I was writing in my notebooks to my teammates, because again, that was just a way for me to escape a lot of the bullshit that goes on as a business side of basketball. And when money gets involved, it's like they say, kids, more money, more problems. and now that you got kids being put in a position to not only have independence, not only have an unlimited source of knowledge and access to information, thanks Google, and now they're gonna have all the money to themselves too. Oh my God. We need to do a workshop immediately. We need to do a workshop. We need to first and foremost start teaching financial literacy. And I have a really cool thing coming up with this company called the Players Society. And I'll be doing an interview with them next week, actually. I can't remember the specific day because there's a lot of things lined up, but follow me, you'll keep up. And it's the Players Society, and what we're going to be diving into is exactly that, is financial literacy and what that means and how to be able to provide for yourself and to expand, not just as a player or a student, but to expand yourself as a business, as your own independent business.
Well, Dylan, you have obviously a lot of incredible things going on. So I kind of want to end this real quick, as you have given us so much of your time. We really appreciate it so much. So going to give you some time here. Plug whatever some things you have coming up, where we follow you on social medias, all that good stuff.
Oh man, guys, I'm super excited. So first and foremost, my official solo single debut is coming up here on 6/20, which is also Father's Day. So I'm going to be dropping song. It's called Diamonds. It's featuring DJ Horse. Yeehaw. I'm a real cowgirl. These city girls, they be acting up. So we had bring the cowgirls.
You gotta bring it correct. I got you.
Girl, you know what I'm saying? Nah, but I'm bougie too, so I actually really do enjoy the city girls. So I have that coming up here, and then for people who want to kind of keep up with all the things I do, because again, I have a lot going on from my foundation and my activism and philanthropy to my music, and that's kind of been my primary focus is really reaching that goal for myself and popping off like the pop star that I am, and blowing up the music scene and taking over, literally taking over, not taking part, taking over. So that's what I've been preparing myself for these last 3 years. So 620, that's what I would really, really hope that everybody can go support me by listening to my song and tagging me and sharing it. And you can find me on Instagram. It's more of the most active, Dylan.Gonzalez. And then you can also find me on Twitter, Dylan Gonzalez. And basically all of my other channels, I constantly promote through those. So you'll find me on TikTok and Snapchat and all those other things if you guys get those locked in.
Fantastic. Well, we thank you so much. Make sure you go follow Dylan Gonzalez. He has a lot of great things coming up here. We appreciate you so much for coming on. This was fantastic insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Seriously.
No, thank you so much for giving our lady listeners, our girl athletes, your perspective tonight on not only recruiting, but the whole gamut that you were able to give them education on. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Until next time. I'm sure we'll
for sure.
All right. Well, David, that was one of the most informative interviews we've ever had. You just gave her a little bit and she gave you every single thing to consider. Very well informed, very, very just the information. I feel like if people were truly listening tonight, and I hope they are, I hope they're listening and taking the advice to heart here. Because we always, again, talk about, just the athlete in the playing arena. But a person like this, like Dylan Gonzalez, who has transcended just the typical stereotype of an athlete and then taken the skills that she was given during her college. And I love that she really emphasized how important education was. And not, playing career, it didn't end. What she did afterwards was phenomenal. And she's still doing incredible things. And it's just, it's awesome stuff to keep up with.
Here's a young woman at 26 years old. She's got her nonprofit. She's got her pop career coming off. She's, like she was saying, it's not instant coffee, right? We hear our friend James Kirkland say that all the time. It's not instant coffee. She's 26 and she's percolated. She's got her degrees. She's she's got her career going. She's got all her stuff. It's a grind. It's a daily grind that she's welcoming and open to doing. And she's loving to do the work. Like you heard out of her mouth. I really hope not only the female athletes, but just athletes in general that are young, high schoolers, junior collegers, or even people in college, re-listen to this a couple times and play it through and take notes from what she said, because there's a lot that you said. There's a lot of education in there, a lot of information that you're hearing from firsthand knowledge. Like she went through it. I can't tell you about that because I was a powerlifter in school and I didn't get recruited. I just did my thing, and I won national titles and everything, but I didn't have that experience. She had that experience that we can bring to the table. And that's what I loved about this conversation. And when Dylan said she'd come on for us and be a guest, I was so excited because I knew how much she had to offer to our listeners. So I really hope that they go and they really listen to her advice.
Well, it's definitely a lot of help to young athletes out there. If you're listening, if you need additional help, Maverick Sports Consulting was created to help professionals in the sporting community to showcase their passion in a professional manner, whether that is to help you when approaching an interview, create a social media marketing plan, or helping you prepare to take a Wonderlic test. We are here to help you maximize your opportunity. Please head over to MaverickSportsConsulting.com. Come find your advantage package today. So, David, I wanted to hit on before we left today, because I wanted to try to touch base again on the secret sauce. We might have to keep that to next week. Uncle Dave's story time might have to be next week as well. But we wanted to talk about a good friend of the show, Mr. Cameron Kinley, who came on with us once throughout his draft process, and he came on with us day 2 of the 2021 NFL draft, just kind of give us a preview. And so he was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, played really well in their rookie camp as well. I know I sent you the clip of him intercepting your good friend Kyle Trask in the rookie mini camp. So
that was the receiver's fault.
Oh yeah. That lame duck that he threw. But yeah, sure. Cameron is a great young man. We enjoyed our conversation with him thoroughly from a lot of standpoints, and he had some remarkable stories. And I was so excited to see him doing well with the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a story comes across to me last night, and I sent it to David Turner. I think I sent it up like 3 a.m. Eastern time because I think I was up with the baby at that point. So the rookie cornerback who signed with Tampa Bay Buccaneers as an undrafted free agent is now no longer with the team. So the story here is when you are a part of a military-based institution, of course, he's coming from the Naval Academy, you have a request because you're going to serve time after you graduate, right? You were going to,
right. David Robinson had to put the same request in.
Right. David Robinson, Roger Staubach, there's a bunch, Alejandro Villanueva now plays offensive tackle. There was a lot of guys that have gone through this process. And there's actually a lot of guys right now that are going through this process right now, which makes this a crazy story. So his request to chase his dream and then put his active duty on hold until after his post-playing career was denied. And multiple reports here. So coming from Captain Jarrell Dorsey, wrote in a statement, when students accept admissions and continue their education in this program, there is an understanding and acknowledgement that they will, upon graduation, be commissioned. Captain Dorsey later said, every midshipman attends on the same terms, and each has the same responsibility to serve. Exceptions to that commitment to serve has been rightfully rare. So he's basically saying, this is the decision. This is what you signed up for. We're not going to make exceptions for the most part. Now, the co-founder of Divine Sports and Entertainment, which represents Cameron, came out and said, I believe this was Ryan Williams Jenkins who said this. He said that Cameron wants to fulfill both of his childhood dreams, playing in the NFL and honorably serving his country. Obviously, the window of opportunity to have that first part, the dream of playing in the NFL, is now. Because if he serves, maybe he misses his window as an undrafted free agent. So the weird part, though, is, David, and so this isn't a direct comparison because we're talking about some players who are coming from different military institutions. But we have Nolan Laufenberg out of Air Force who signed with the Denver Broncos, and he is a full go. He is allowed to play NFL football. He's allowed to have his opportunity. George Silvernack, who is also an Air Force grad, signed with the Los Angeles Rams. He is good to go. And then Parker Ferguson, also Air Force grad, signed with the New York Jets all this season, 2021 NFL draft prospects.
Well, and there's the other one from West Point, John something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over. John Radigan was the last guy. So there were 4 others outside of him. You're right. He's from West Point, signed with the Seattle Seahawks. He is also good to go. So I know that there's going to be some people that say this is just a difference of school. But this is just seems inconsistent to me because we're coming from a same military-based institution. They passed the bill in 2019 that allowed these young men to take the opportunity directly after they graduate to chase their NFL dreams. And I know that Cameron actually wrote a long, thorough kind of laying out his side of everything and what his beliefs were. And a little bit of what he said was, while I acknowledge that these men are from different branches of the armed services, which I kind of just highlighted, it puzzles me as to why I am the only person denied this opportunity. And then he also said, I am very aware of the commitment that I made to service when I first arrived at the United States Naval Academy. I look forward to my career as a naval officer in the information warfare community. However, I'm deserving of the opportunity to live out another one of my lifelong dreams before fulfilling my service requirement. So he's not allowed to appeal this, though, David, to my understanding. That kind of came out from the captain as well, is that they're not allowing him to appeal this decision. So unless something drastically changes, maybe from a way higher up here, Cameron Kinley's professional football career is put on hold. I know there's a lot of layers to this. We just talked about a lot of football players are going through a similar situation from different schools, but still, very similar. It's not directly apples to apples, but it's pretty darn close.
It's as close as you can get.
It's as close as you can get without being the actual school, right? And it's just a shame, to say the least, right now, that a young man that we've gotten to know a little bit throughout the process and was doing well and was thriving, is having his professional career on hold right now.
Well, and you know what? I'm not trying to be over liberal here on this one, but
yeah,
these are rare opportunities. You're talking about 4, 5 kids, if you include Cam, from military institutions that each had over 100 students playing on those teams. I've been there. I used to go to Air Force. It was one of my schools when I was a Bledsoe scout. And, they have well over 100 kids on these football teams. Sure. And you got, 5 off of these teams that now get an opportunity to play in the NFL. And more than likely, as an undrafted free agent, they're going to get cut. The odds are 95% they're going to get cut come final cuts in September. But say that one of them does catch on a practice squad and sticks around. I mean, why can't their service be bumped by 12 months and then they're required to come be part of it if they're not gainfully employed with an NFL team at that point? Like I led off our conversation with David Robinson was allowed to literally go to the Naval Academy. They knew how big he was. They knew everything. And then they said, well, he won't fit in an airplane, and him in a submarine, he's too limited in his duties. So therefore, I'm like, there's other people that served in the Navy that were as tall as David Robinson. You're just letting him go because he's David Robinson, and that's fine. But when you have these athletes like this that get the opportunity, this is what keeps them from getting drafted, because NFL teams don't want to waste a draft pick, on a player that they don't know will have the opportunity to come play for them. And it's to me, it's backwards thinking. It's like, allow these young men the opportunity to go try out. And if they're not gainfully employed by the new year, then you know what? We gave you your opportunity, kid. You're not going to try out for the next 3 years and then come serve your duty. You got, whatever, 6, 12 months. If you don't catch on, you got to come do your duty. What's postponing their active duty by 6 to 12 months for these young men? I mean, you're talking about a 21-year-old kid, but he can't go serve at 22. Right. You can't go serve at 23? Like, what?
And I'm very confused because I thought that whole bill that was passed in 2019, I'm not as well versed in this as I probably should be, so I don't want to speak to something and sound completely ignorant or incorrect in this talking point. But what was the point of passing that bill if now there's a loophole or a player that can't chase his dream? It just seems, like you said, backwards thinking. It seems very inconsistent. Like, if this is
we heard our first guest, Dylan, talk about no governing body for the NC2A, right? And what they do, and they break laws all the time to make sure they have control over the athletes. Well, here's the military now. Like you said, there's a bill on the table that said they can do it. And you and I aren't going to sit here and pick apart the bill. If one of our guests want to do it and come on later and we'll talk about it, that's fine. Or one of our listeners, that's cool. But again, the bill was passed. So these young men and women had avenues to pursue their professional score. And again, the guys, what is this? The Dorsey, Captain Dorsey said, rightfully rare. Dude, this is 5 people. This isn't like something we said. We're not saying let half the freaking Navy out because they got a shot. We're talking 5 people. And out of 5, he's the only one not being allowed to pursue his dream. And like you said, they're all, again, it's Air Force, Army, and freaking Navy. I mean, what? Yeah.
One thing I'm a little confused about, is there a difference? Because, I think of, Joe Cardona, who was a long snapper, right, was drafted. I think he stole the New England Patriots. So he didn't have a delay, and he was from Navy, right? And then Malcolm Perry, who was drafted by the Dolphins last year in the 7th round, I believe, he is on the active roster, or at least on the practice squad, and he did not have to serve. So is this just a difference of an undrafted free agent versus a draft pick? Like, why is that inconsistency coming from?
I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it, because when I used to go to Air Force, I can tell the broad strokes of the story. I can't get into the specifics. But there was a player that I was elevating to a draft pick, and I talked to the teams, or I talked to the administration. They said, no, if he gets drafted by a team, we can just station him by the team. And then they can, he can, in the off season, fulfill his duty and do some stuff. Like Air Force was willing to work with an NFL team that drafted him to do that. So I put that in my report. I was like, if you draft this player, I've gotten a letter confirming that the Air Force will work with you, and I laid it out for him in my report. That all being said, obviously we see 2 on this list of the, 3 on this list where you see Air Force is the branch of government working with the football players to get them where they want to go. And we're seeing Navy hold a hard line and West Point allow it out. So, again, I'm not saying this is a hotbed of recruiting here, but if I got a pick of the litter right now, I'm looking at Air Force going, hey, I might go play up in Colorado at Air Force because they might let me live it out if I, and still get a top-notch education and everything.
Right. And I mean, all I can say to kind of end this a little bit is, Cam, if you're out there, if you want to come back on the show, I would love to hear your perspective, because I know we're reading the statement that you put out and the Twitter post that you put out and all that good stuff. But I would love to hear your perspective, because I really hate that a young man was doing well, was thriving, was having a good rookie mini camp, is getting ready for the real thing and opportunity to potentially make a football team, and it gets snatched from him, and it's not in his control. Like I always say, like I can deal with, the repercussions of a mistake if it's my own. But if I have something taken away from me that is out of my control, that's when I get upset. That's when I get angry. And this is kind of that same situation. So
yeah, I don't want to get Cam in trouble with his superiors, but yes, the door is always open to Cam.
Yes.
Like we love him. We talked to him on draft day. I was telling him to drive over to the Washington football team to knock on the door and get Rivera to draft him. I mean, he's a great kid. And, if he wants to come on and tell his story, he's got an open mic.
You just didn't want him to intercept Kyle Trask. That's why you didn't want him.
Oh, please.
Well, I mean, the invitation's out there again. All great note there, David. We don't want to get him in trouble in any way, but Cam, if the invitation's always on the table, man, you're a great young man. David, I know that we're a couple minutes over here, but I promised the listeners something. And I know we have a few that have stuck with us throughout this hour and 7 minutes up until this point. So we're not going to go to the secret sauce. We'll save the defensive line for next week, part of the show that we have coming up with James Kirkland coming on next week. So story time with Uncle Dave. It's going to be a mainstay. It's going to be a fixture. It's going to be every week, even when we have Kirkland's Corner. It's still going to be Uncle Dave. All right. So story time with Uncle Dave. Your story for tonight. You have to tell me your first interaction with Al Davis. First time you met him.
Oh, crap. Well, the first interaction or the first time that I actually saw him?
You can pick.
Okay, well, the first interaction is rough, man. It was it was rough. We were in a scouting meeting, and he knew I was working there, and he knew who I was, obviously. No one was in the building without knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he walked in. Who are you? And as a young scout, you're just like, oh my God, he doesn't know who the hell I am. So I got nervous right away, and I started rattling off who I was. And again, one of the rules I teach people in Mavericks now is don't have diarrhea of the mouth and just say a bunch of crap.
Yep.
Oh, I said a bunch of crap trying to prove to him that I belong there. And I said a bunch of stuff that later came to bite me in the ass. So I was just like sitting there, and he goes, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Oh, really? Mm. Did you hear that, John? Did you hear that, Bruce? Yeah. Okay. And it was just like, oh my God, like I was killing myself without even knowing it. So I was trying to prove myself, which is a skill now I teach not to do, because why? I stepped in that shit sandwich and I ate it the whole conversation with him. And then he told me to get out of the room.
Oh, good.
I got thrown out of the room, and I wasn't allowed back in there for that draft process, because anytime he came in, he didn't want me in the room.
Well, but the great thing that you got out of that was now you preach what you teach what you preach, right? Or preach what you teach. I don't know how the saying is.
No, I don't. I totally. Most of the stuff I teach is because I made the mistake, or a friend of mine made the mistake, and we learned from it. And so, for me, like when I'm talking about don't just shut up, answer the question, who are you? The answer is I'm David Turner, sir. That's it. Don't go on a 20-minute rant of trying to prove yourself why you need to be there, because all I did was give him the ammo that he needed. Now, I stayed 4 more years after that. I mean, I moved up the ranks and everything. It was just his way of the old dog beating the new dog down and, barking and kicking me out of the room. And, I was all insecure about it. And then the following year when I was in the big draft room and everything, I was like, all right, I see what happened. I see what was going on here.
That's really funny. And I just learned something. I feel like usually I'm the same way. I kind of like, who are you? Well, I'm Ryan Roberts. I am blah, 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 blah. But next time I would just say, I'm Ryan Roberts, sir.
Let them ask you the next question. Exactly.
Yep. I love it, man. I love it. So that is going to wind us down here on Mavs Sports Take episode 43. Again, we're getting close to the 50th episode, which is the gold anniversary. So make sure that you guys like, share, retweet, do everything on any podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, so specifically, if you want to go through a 5-star review, we would really appreciate it. I'm going to let David Turner get the final word in here. I just want to let everybody know that we appreciate all of you for sticking around. The live interactions are why we continue to do the show. We want to thank, of course, One Institution for the great platform that they have provided for us. Want to thank the great guests that we continue to have on. Of course, Ms. Dylan Gonzalez that could join us tonight. Some great insights to some young athletes, whether you are a female, a male, whether you are in your post-playing career, whether you still are in your playing career, whether you're trying to get into your playing career, whatever it is, a lot of great insight there. Of course, I also want to thank David Turner as always. This is one of the best times of my week every single Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern time. I get to talk some ball. David Turner, the floor is the floor is yours for the final word of the night.
Thank you. I appreciate Dylan coming on and creating such a great episode for us. Her insight is unparalleled, and what she's been able to pull off in her young career so far and everything she's gone through has just been an amazing perspective that I hope everybody listens and re-listens to and catches her advice. It's free, guys and gals. Just take advantage of it. It's right there in front of you. But I have to say, a sad note today, Jim Fossil passed away, and Jim was the coach in 2003 when I was at the New York Football Giants. And he's a man that when I was in the UFL, he was a coach down in Las Vegas, and I was up in Hartford. And my career has paralleled his a lot with following him around. And his son, I called him Bones. Everybody knows him by Bones. It's John Fossil, special teams coach in the league.
Oh yeah, it was with the Rams for a few years. Yep.
John was up there in Oakland with us, and it's where I got to know John and knowing his dad and talking to him about his dad and everything back in the office and stuff was just an added special moments for me with the Fossil family. And there's been so many times where my path was just crossed with him, and today's a sad day to learn he's passed away at a very young age of 71 years old. My mother is 75, and I really drew me back today and made me pause. I had to sit down and take a breath when I read that news, because it's just too young for this world to be without Jim Fossil. And he was a very good friend to me. He was a very good mentor to me. I could call him, text him. He'd always have advice and pick up the phone. So, I'm going to miss him. And I just want to say that as my final thought. Our prayers, our thoughts, our love is all with the Fossil family, his kids, his grandkids, everybody who loved him. We're thinking of you tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great way to end it. RIP, Coach Fossil. Obviously a great coach. For David Turner, great friend, great mentor, great person. An unfortunate passing today. With his family, we wish you all the best. Want to shout out real quick again, missed some comments in the chat from earlier for Larry Lombard for joining us, Hollywood Titan for joining us. What is up, friends? We appreciate you all for stopping by. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Hopefully the Sixers have clinched by then. Sixers and 6, by the way. Everyone have a great night.